In a small Austrian town called Braunau am Inn, on April 20th, 1889, a child was born who would one day change the course of history in a way the world had never imagined. His name was Adolf Hitler. His father, Alois, was a strict and authoritarian customs officer, while his mother, Clara, was a kind and loving woman. From an early age, Adolf displayed a restless nature. He was not a brilliant student. In fact, he struggled in school, often clashing with teachers and failing to follow rules. But he carried within him a deep passion for art and architecture. He dreamed of becoming a famous painter and applied to the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. Twice he tried, and twice he was rejected. Those rejections planted the seeds of bitterness that grew steadily inside him. During his teenage years in Vienna, Hitler lived in poverty. He wandered the streets, doing small jobs, selling his sketches, and often going hungry. Yet, in those years of loneliness, he discovered ideas that would shape his future. He read books about German nationalism, racial superiority, and anti-Semitic propaganda. Vienna was a city full of different cultures and communities, and Hitler, instead of embracing diversity, became deeply hateful toward Jews, whom he began to blame for his personal failures and for society's struggles. When the First World War broke out in 1914, Hitler finally found a purpose. He enlisted in the German army and fought on the front lines. He was a loyal soldier, brave and committed, earning medals for courage. Once, he was wounded by shrapnel, and another time, he lost his eyesight temporarily from a gas attack. For him, the war was not just a battlefield. It was his chance to belong, to feel important, to be part of something greater than himself. But when Germany was defeated in 1918, Hitler's world collapsed again. The Treaty of Versailles humiliated Germany, stripping it of its territories, crippling its economy, and forcing it to pay crushing reparations. To Hitler, this defeat was unbearable, and he believed that Germany had been betrayed from within. After the war, he stayed in Munich, searching for meaning in a broken nation. Germany was drowning in unemployment, hunger, and chaos. It was in this atmosphere of despair that Hitler discovered his gift for public speaking. He joined a small political group called the German Workers' Party, which later became the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazi Party. Through his fiery speeches, filled with anger and passion, he won people's hearts. He knew how to speak to the frustrations of ordinary Germans. He told them that Germany could rise again, that their pride could be restored, but only if they removed those he labeled as enemies, Jews, communists, and anyone who stood in the way of a strong, united nation. As the years passed, Hitler rose higher in the Nazi Party. His charisma, his ability to stir emotions, and his relentless ambition made him the leader. In 1923, he tried to seize power in what became known as the Beer Hall Putsch, but the attempt failed, and he was arrested. In prison, he wrote his book, Mein Kampf, where he laid out his ideology, the supremacy of the Aryan race, hatred for Jews, and his vision of a powerful German empire. When he was released, the economic depression of the 1930s gave him the perfect chance. Millions were jobless, and people longed for a leader who could save them. Hitler promised them jobs, dignity, and greatness. In 1933, he became Chancellor of Germany, and soon after, he transformed the nation into a dictatorship with himself as the supreme leader. Under his rule, Germany changed dramatically. He rebuilt industries, created jobs, and restored national pride. Many Germans adored him, believing he had rescued their nation from ruin. But behind the scenes, his government unleashed terrifying policies. Jews were stripped of rights, their businesses destroyed, and they were forced into ghettos. Hitler's hatred turned into a systematic plan of extermination. In concentration camps, millions of Jews, along with Romani people, disabled individuals, and political opponents, were murdered in what became known as the Holocaust, a crime against humanity that remains one of history's darkest chapters. But Hitler was not content with just Germany. He wanted an empire, a Third Reich, that would last 1,000 years. In 1939, he invaded Poland, and with that, the Second World War began. His armies swept across Europe with lightning speed, conquering country after country: Norway, Denmark, Belgium, the Netherlands, France. The world watched in shock as Nazi Germany grew more powerful than ever. His strategy of blitzkrieg, or lightning war, made him almost unstoppable. Yet, ambition blinded him. In 1941, he launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. At first, his forces advanced rapidly, but soon, the brutal Russian winter and fierce resistance turned the campaign into disaster. His soldiers froze, starved, and died by the thousands. Meanwhile, in the West, the United States joined the war after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Now Hitler faced enemies on all sides. As the war dragged on, Germany began to collapse. Allied forces bombed cities, food grew scarce, and the once confident Führer became paranoid, isolated, and desperate. He retreated into a bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery in Berlin. His speeches no longer inspired. His promises turned to delusion. While his people suffered and his armies crumbled, he refused to surrender. In April 1945, with the Soviet army closing in on Berlin, Hitler faced his final hours. In the bunker, he married his longtime companion Eva Braun. The very next day, unwilling to be captured, they both ended their lives. Their bodies were burned as the sound of Russian artillery thundered above. The man who had once dreamed of ruling the world, who had brought fire and death to millions, left behind only ruins, destruction, and a legacy of horror. Adolf Hitler's story is not only about the rise of a dictator, but also about the danger of unchecked hatred, blind ambition, and the vulnerability of nations in despair. He rose by promising hope, by giving people someone to blame for their struggles, and by feeding them dreams of glory. But in the end, those dreams turned into ashes, and his name became a symbol of cruelty and destruction. His life remains a warning to the world. When hate becomes stronger than humanity, when fear is used to control, and when power is pursued without limits, the result is nothing but darkness and tragedy.